Good morning and happy Monday to you. My name is LaShonda Brown, and to everyone on LinkedIn and YouTube, I would like to welcome you to Bootstrap Biz Advice Live, where I teach service providers how to work less and live more by leveraging tech and YouTube. We're going to get started with a little bit of housekeeping. I just got back from Canva Create in LA, so I'm getting my grounding again. I have a lot to update you on, but I have a very special guest today for a live book discussion, and I think it's going to be a real inspiration to get you started for the week. So far this year, I have gained 907 subscribers, so do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you like business content that's going to help you to grow your biz without breaking the bank. Last week's live stream got 187 views and 25 likes, so your engagement matters. So at any point, whether you are watching the live or you're watching the replay, I want you to like it if you like it. Your engagement really does matter. And for those of you who are watching live, I have started doing a question of the day as a way to get your fingers going at the very beginning of the live and get some engagement in the chat. So my question for you today is, have you ever struggled with playing small in business? I will tell you that this is something that I have definitely struggled with as someone who grew up in an area where people don't do internet stuff for a living. I have constantly found myself in this position. So if you have found yourself in that camp, let people know in the comments, because I think owning it at the very beginning is going to set you up to really have a successful time while you're watching the live stream. Now, for the announcements, my friends, I'm only going to tell you once, okay? I was just going to tell the email list, but some of you need the reminders. So if you want to join the Bootstrap Creators for my birthday rate, my birthday was yesterday, but I'm going to let y'all trickle in. Today's the last day. It ends at midnight. So use the code birthday35 to get access to the Bootstrap Creator membership for $35 a month. It's typically $50, so this is a huge savings. I only do this once a year. I only have one birthday. So if you want to hop in, go ahead and do that. Now, we've got a lot of events happening on top of the book discussion today. Tomorrow is Lex's workshop on newsletter monetization. We have 75 people signed up. So if you want to drop in without being a member, you can drop in for 10, and that link will be in the description. I'm super excited for that event. And then on Thursday, I am going to walk you guys step by step and show you how to take advantage of some of these incredible new features that Canva released. It was outrageous being there and seeing how many different things they came up with to make your life easier. So if you have not downloaded the Bootstrap Biz Advice app, you can actually do this on your desktop as well. So I want to remind you, all you need to do to sign up for this community event for free is to go to bootstrapbizadvice.com. You're going to click on calendar, and from there, you will see the event to sign up for. You just click on that little thumbnail. If you're logged in, it will automatically say, I'm going to be there, and you click on that. If you're brand new, name and email, you'll get added to the list. So we will be live streaming directly in the app because I want to get you guys in the habit of using the app as well. We spent a lot of time building it, and it's a great resource. So I hope that you all are going to be as excited as I am about the guest. I want to give a little bit of background before I bring her up on screen. We had the opportunity to actually meet in person and share at the stage. And one of the things that I thought was so incredible about her servant heart is she captured content of me speaking without me even asking. And when I hopped off stage, she came over to me and said, hey, turn your AirDrop on. I've got some content for you to help you market yourself online. And I just thought, oh my gosh, bonded for life. Not to mention, we actually prayed for each other backstage. So we're practically cousins at this point. But I also got to add her new book to my stack. So we've got her first book, Dirt. We have her second book, Slow Growth Equals Strong Roots. And what is coming up at the end of the month is Underestimated. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So my friends, if you have questions for Mary at any time, drop them in the comments. I'll pop them up at the end. But for now, I'm going to bring Mary on stage so we can answer my questions and talk about her brand new book that's coming out April 29th.
Can I just say, I feel like this is the most professional interview I've ever done. Oh my gosh. There are apps and intros and beautiful graphics. And wow, what an intro. I just feel like we should quit right here. It can only go down from there.
No, not at all. I am extra, and that's just how God
No,
made
I
me, and
love
that's
it.
okay.
I love it. I'm so, if I didn't like know how wonderful you are, I'd be so intimidated by all this amazing stuff that you have. But now it's just, we'll call it inspiring instead.
Here's the thing. I think at some point I really want to do like a retreat or something where I can show people, because when I tell you, so much of what you guys are impressed by is my husband. I live in a house with a video production company. So this is not normal. No worries. This is not, the expectation. But I'm so grateful for his help, for our team's help. And I try to tell people, I'm like, my live streams be given Oprah energy. Like, I don't know how
Yeah,
else to tell you that
right.
without just showing you.
Yes.
So I always love to see the faces of people in the green room backstage as things
Yeah.
are happening, because it's hard for me to tell you. It's easier for me to show you. So I'm so glad that you're enjoying being here already.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And how grateful are we for the husbands behind the scene who keep it
Yes, give it
moving?
up for the husbands who put up with us, type A women who have lots of ideas.
That's right.
And we have some other stuff in common that the people need to know. We are both mountain girls and not ashamed of it.
That's right.
So there's that. But I think there's something really unique about your story. We both also were people who were the first in our family to go to college, which I think is
Yeah.
incredible and really helps, inspire our families and set the tone. But you, my friend, have an insane origin story where you went from a single wide trailer in West Virginia to going to Yale. So, my first question, I mean, I have so many I could ask you, but I really want to know, how did growing up without a lot actually impact your mindset? And I want to
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah. Well, do me this favor, actually, even before you put me, full screen by myself, will you just show that cover of Dirt for everybody who hasn't seen it? Bring that cover up there. This is
Yes.
the actual trailer that I grew up in West Virginia. My husband, Justin, took the photo the first time I took him home to meet my family. Even like, I don't know if you can see it from there, but like it's a single wide trailer with a one room shack sort of built on. That was sort of like the way you upgraded a single wide trailer in the 1980s. And so for those of you who are maybe meeting me for the first time, that is sort of the elevator pitch version of my story, right? That's kind of like that. If I were going to tell you the movie of my life, that's what it would be. Grew up in a single wide trailer in rural West Virginia, born in 1980, child of the 80s. Shout out to the children of the 80s and 90s. The last true feral cat kids where we were just running around from sunup to sundown. And surprising to no one, single wide trailers in 1980 were not really built to last. And I always have to say that I give I take some responsibility, because being those feral cats that we were, me and my neighborhood friends would climb up on that one room addition that was sort of made of just like whatever mismatched scrap wood you could find in the yard, use that to kind of hoist ourselves up on top of the trailer when it was raining, and use it as the world's most painful slip and slide with like these, bolt rivets every few feet. And so, unsurprising to anyone, the roof starts to leak. I always say that my people are the people who know what drywall ceiling looks like just before it gives way in a downpour, this kind of pregnant pause before the muddy waters pour down. And so when the roof leaks and caves in, eventually the floor begins to cave in. You had to know exactly where to hopscotch on the brown shag carpeting so that you didn't go all the way through. That brown carpeting became caked with the mud from my dad's logging boots, and we had a bunch of stray animals growing up, so they would go inside just as much as they would go outside. So you didn't really know in that carpet where the, brown shag carpeting ended and the dirt began. We had mushrooms growing out of the carpet at one point. We had pretty much every kind of undesirable bug and animal you can imagine at different points in the trailer. It was just really a really rough, living condition in that respect. Really great in other respects, but really rough in the, what it actually was respect. And I always say that, the mildew from all of that would cling in the air and your clothes and your very dignity as you went to school. And so I mentioned this in my first book, Dirt. There's a passage. And so the new book, Underestimated, I've kind of been joking, like if Dirt is sort of the movie version of my life, we've seen this movie, Humble Beginnings to the Ivy League. We read this book. My version of that book is, what does our story look like through making peace with our past and having empathy for those who came before, even if they didn't always get it right. And what does it look like through the lens of grace? And so if Dirt is the movie version of my life, then Underestimated almost becomes kind of the textbook, right? So in Dirt, I write, growing up without a lot just does something to your brain. I can't explain it. Maybe it's the prefrontal cortex still developing. Maybe it's neural pathways grown closer over time at the repetition and replaying of bad generational thoughts turn bad generational patterns. I don't know. Maybe it's just inhaling all the mildew. But whatever it is, it makes you expect to fail before you even start. You can call it a lot of different things, self-doubt, self-loathing, self-sabotage, this, scarcity mindset, a poverty mindset. But whatever it is this belief that no matter what you do, you will never be enough. And that for me, LaShonda, really kicked off a whole life of trying to then earn my way into being enough. And there's another passage in Dirt that gets pulled into Underestimated as we're kind of analyzing why are we the way that we are, where I say, what if success is where the real trouble begins? What if we get everything we ever wanted, like getting into Yale for law school, which I've joked is like getting one of Willy Wonka's golden tickets? What if we get everything we ever wanted, only to go home and still not like this skin we have to do life in? What if we tuck ourselves into the cool cotton sheets when it's just us and the darkness settled in and it still feels like we're a walking, waking imposter? We whisper to our thin epidermis, what could you possibly still be screaming for? You have everything you ever wanted. And so if I could go from being in a single wide trailer, first in my family to go to college, to the #1 law school in the country, and still feel like not enough, still spend 20 more years underestimating myself and playing small, then I had to finally reach this place. I call it my second book, Slow Growth Equals Strong Roots, this at last exhausted place where you've run and you've run and you've run from your story. You've run so hard from failure that you've stumbled into success, and none of it was ever enough. You are at last exhausted to know that there's no amount of more that can ever make you stop feeling less than. That was always an inside job. Good. This is where our real work begins. And so that's what I'd say about that.
Girl, I feel like we need to be like in a dimly lit cafe just snapping right now. I just need to put that out there for the record, for the recording. You're such a dream. I think as you were talking, I was reminded of the social media campaign that Ashley Bowden did back in the day. And it was called Imperfect Boss. And at the time, I was still in my doing the most era. And she's like, just take a picture, tell a story. And I decided to get my friend who usually shoots the thumbnails for my YouTube videos. I wrote on my arm with a magic marker, who am I? And black marker on my skin. And then I marked through it and I said, why not me?
Wow.
And, of course, I'm like, the hair is herring and I'm like, beat to the gods. And I just was like, this is the image of where I'm trying to go, as someone who has a theater background and was, paid money to learn how to play pretend. I was like, how do I show up as my authentic self and be okay with what people see when they look at me? And so I just thought like this picture really does encompass that mindset, and that we need to shift. We need to stop underestimating ourselves and say, why, who am I to go to Yale? Who am I to graduate from college? Who am I? And start saying, why not me? And so I really want you to take some time to give some people some practical and some simple shifts that they can make so that they themselves can stop playing small, because we all do it. So first and foremost, trust and believe, no matter what you think you know about either one of us, we have played small, and we are in a season of wanting to own where our lives are going. And so we're kind of giving you a little bit of hindsight based on what we're learning. And so I would love for you to take that question to help those who are watching live.
Yeah. So the first thing that I'll tell you is that the entirety of Underestimated is themed around this imagery of pushing a boulder up the mountain over and over and over again. And there's also a part midway through the book and then the rest of the book where there's this ledge come back around. Like you leaped the first time, but will you leap again? And I'm not going to spoil it, but they are actually one and the same. But I want to just camp there for a second at the beginning, because I want to speak to the person watching who you can't explain it, but it just feels like it's always felt so much harder than it should be. It feels so much harder than it seems to feel for other people. It is this kind of energy of we push and we push and we push, our well-worn Chuck Taylors looking for any kind of relief we can find in the treacherous terrain. We are almost within our breakthrough moment. We can taste the rarefied air. We are within arm's length reach of the small wooden stake sign in the ground, the one that says arrived, and you are here just to tell us how close we came this time. And at the last minute, like Wile E. Coyote about to get his comeuppance, we freeze when we make eye contact with everyone watching at home. And we blink, and we lose our grip, and we lose our way, and the boulder rolls all the way back down the mountain. The very first words in this book are, for some of us, it just takes a little longer. For the life of us, we cannot seem to understand how other people can just decide on a thing and then go do it right away. They implement, they execute, they achieve without a second thought or a look back over their shoulder. They just keep right on trucking, Elwood style. What? Like it's hard? Meanwhile, we're mad at ourselves for all the stutters and the starts and the stops and the start overs, this myth of a boulder rolled all the way back down the hill. We repeat the lesson until it is learned, and we never seem to learn it. We shrink, we self-sabotage, we play small. The way we speak to ourselves, we would never speak to anyone else, right? The doubts and the fears and the venom we spit inside the well-rounded, wounded corridors of our minds, it shocks even us sometimes. Who could hate us that much to keep ripping us apart that way? There's no one tougher on us than us. So I just want to pause for a second and say, if that is you, if what I'm describing there of like, why do I always feel like I keep finding myself back at the starting line? Why do I feel like everything I do is like trying to run a sprint through molasses? It feels like everything I'm doing, I'm always pushing against something. This book in particular, it's for anybody who deals with fear. Every chapter is a different face of fear. We have perfectionism, people-pleasing, procrastination, imposter syndrome, overthinking, even a fear of success, 14 in total, different faces fear will try to put on. And it's for anybody who struggles with fear, but it is the most bullseye target audience for this book are the people who have mud in their stories. And it has taught us that it's not safe to trust anyone, including ourselves. And so that's an important setup for me. Like, first of all, if you're feeling that way, this book is for you. But that's an important setup for me to really get to the heart of the answer, which is we really start to find this in chapter 3. And the chapters all have really fun titles. Chapter 3 is self-sabotage, is a shot glass. Chapter 10 is perfectionism is hiding with better PR, which is my favorite one. We have chapter 11, failures of bankrupt identity. But in chapter 3, I have to start by saying and sort of confessing to all of your people, LaShonda, that, everybody has their guilty pleasures. Some people have the Kardashians or, Bachelor in Purgatory where, might not get picked, but you're not going home. Me, I like to follow really super cheesy social media accounts, success social media accounts, the kinds that usually have like a lion in a Lamborghini that says roar until you get everything you came for. Is that you?
I love that I know that now. So here's my thing. For me, I was randomly in Des Moines, Iowa in January, story for another day.
Okay.
But I was on a judging panel where all of these farmers got to come up and kind of Shark Tank style pitch what they would do if they won the money. And so there were different tiers. At that point, everyone was going to win. They just didn't know how much they were going to win. And like, I had to fight the urge to cry at every single pitch because just watching them, as farmers, not as, TV personalities, step in front of 500 people and talk about what they would do with that investment was just so beautiful and so sweet and so genuine. Like, that's the kind of stuff that gets me. So it's always, that small business owner that is just trying to make an honest living doing what they love that I'm always like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, keep going. So that's my guilty pleasure. Like, give me a little mini doc, show me what Mama Sue was cooking and selling because I'm watching that. So that's my guilty pleasure.
Love it. But yeah, so I just follow these, all these really cheesy accounts, mostly to kind of like hate on them in my head. But one day there was just this quick scroll by of a post from one of these accounts, and I almost didn't realize it was from them because it was so out of character. It was such a good post. And the post basically said, if you think you have the capacity of a shot glass, then every time you get a little bit more than that, you will subconsciously shrink yourself back down until you fit into it. And I added, until you fit into the tiny containers you believe you belong in. And very shortly after seeing that post on my podcast, The Mary Marantz Show, I had Dr. Allison Cook on, who's phenomenal. If you have not met her, you would love her. And we were talking about her new book at the time, The Best of You. And I said, listen, how do we stop doing this to ourselves if we don't even know we're doing it most of the time, if it is subconscious, if we return to chaos because it's what we knew growing up, if we return to instability because it's what we knew growing up? Our brains, like a bad geometry proof gone awry, think that chaos is familiar. Familiar is comfortable. Somewhere along the lines, we have mistaken comfortable equals safe. Therefore, by the law of transitive property, if A equals B, B equals C, and C equals D, then chaos must equal safe. How do we stop doing that to ourselves? And so we pulled up this part of her book and read it. And she was saying, if you didn't have a sense of safety growing up, if you grew up in chaos and instability and it flipped this survival mode switch in you, you can actually, as an adult, reteach yourself a sense of safety. And you do that by setting small but important commitments to yourself. So they should be manageable, but they should also matter to you. Small but important commitments to yourself and actually keeping them. And she said, as you do that, as you honor promises to yourself, both big and small, you are showing yourself. And then she looked me dead in the eye through the video as we were recording. She said, you are showing yourself, Mary, there is a grown-up in the room who can be trusted. That grown-up is you. And I just burst into tears on the spot. And in so many ways, that conversation becomes the linchpin moment in this book. In fact, there's a breakout section right after chapter 3 called The Shift, where I say, I read an article once that said the best ideas are a switch, not a dial. They don't just turn the volume up on what we've already been thinking. They find a way to flip that thinking on its very head. And so traditional wisdom tells us if you don't want to play small, you must always go big. Leap and the net will appear. And I am a huge fan of the go big moment. I'm not hating on go big moments. I've had plenty of them in my life. The problem is that they always felt like something that happened to me and not something that was who I was becoming. And so for me, the biggest work, I say the shift is we think to quit playing small, we have to always go big. But paradoxically, some of the most important work we will do as business owners to quit playing small is actually by starting small. And there's a whole science into this. I'm happy to get into it if you want, but it's actually called Bayesian brain theory. We can talk more about that, but I've already said a lot.
No, I'm here for it. And I think there needs to be this shift in our thinking too, that, like you were saying, some of the science behind what we do, why we do what we do, is important for us to know. Like, there's enough evidence that has been documented at this point to really help us to unravel some of these bad habits and bad mindsets. It's not something that's insurmountable and that we won't ever overcome. And so I think in our mindset, sometimes we go, this is the way I am. This is the way it'll always be. And so we hold ourselves back thinking that things can't change. That's right. That things can change. Sometimes it's just you getting connected with the right information or the right person that can help point you to how to make that change happen. Yeah. And so one of the things I've been feeling lately, and I don't know if you are sensing the energy on the interwebs, is that I feel like so many small business owners are actively fighting the urge to fear for a whole lot of different reasons. And so I absolutely love that you say that fear is a boring liar. And so I want you to really get down to the nitty gritty. If someone was going to walk away from this live stream with something written on their to-do list today, what can someone do today to help them overcome fear? We don't need to get to the root of what's causing the fear, but what can they actually do to get past that?
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned fear is a really boring liar. That's, like I said, that's a big part of what this book is premised around. And a couple years ago, so I, in addition to being an author and podcast host, I also coach women who want to be authors and podcast hosts and speak from the stage. And there was just this particular string of coaching calls I had done where it was all of my coaching clients were being hit by the same versions of fear almost at the exact same time. It was and right on time, existential angst, and so I had just been really frustrated at how it was keeping these really talented, really gifted women playing small, including myself. I was also being attacked by fear in the same ways. And so I hopped on my phone, I pulled it up, and I was just no introduction. I was just it's all been done. It's all been done better. It's all been done by somebody the world actually wants to pay attention to. I can't start until it's perfect. I can't start until I am perfect. What if I start and I don't have the bandwidth? What if I can't stay consistent with it? What if I start and the critics come? What if they say, who does she think she is? What if my voice doesn't really matter? What if I don't really matter? What if it's already too late? What if I don't know every step in the staircase? Whatever. And it was just the same, rinse and repeat, copy and paste scripts, broken scripts. It was using on me. It was using on them. The ones it was using on them, it was using on me. And it made me realize fear is a really boring liar when we actually boil it down. Like, and then the two dots that connected in my brain in a way that I'd never seen them connected before, which is the high every writer is, fighting for, is what if fear attacks creatives in particular because it is jealous that it itself is not creative at all. Fear is not tied to muse or melody or the force of all creation, short of being able to throw its voice to sound like you and to shapeshift into different faces. It was not imbued with any inherent gifts at all. And so it must spend its life attacking those of us who were. And so if you can do that, if you can start to wrap your head around, fear's not a very creative guy, but he is a busy guy. Fear's not a very creative guy, but he is a busy guy. And like any good, productive overachiever, he's learned how to prioritize. So if somebody's already hiding in plain sight or playing small or not making good on that thing they can't go a day without thinking about, that thing they were put here to do, and another year goes by and the clock goes on ticking and the world is worse for your absence. If you're already hiding in plain sight, a little fear maintenance mode sprinkled in, some perfectionism, some self-sabotage, and you are all set. But if you start to break out of that, if you take a major step forward on making good on the dream, I see this when people sign up to come spend a day in person with me. It's like, and like I said earlier, cue existential angst, like right on time. So you go to make meaningful progress on the dream. If you show up and try to do work that matters, you better expect fear to show up teeth bared and snarling. You're going to see an entirely different face of fear. The mask will fall off. This is not your friend keeping you safe from being embarrassed. This friend who's looking out for you. The mask suddenly falls off and you'll see how nasty fear can get. I've launched 3 books now, LaShonda, and every single time, 2 of the books, we had a car die right before launch. 2 of the books, we had my Facebook account get hacked and we've not been able to get it back. 3 of the books, we had a major appliance die. We've had food poisoning, sick dogs, supply chain issues. Like, it's comical at this point if it was not so,
Jeez,
frustrating.
yeah. Well,
But
and I mean, I think you're right. It's always something when you're trying to do something great, you feel the greatest sense of fear and
yeah,
anxiety. And so it's like, yeah, if you play small all the time, then you'll just get small attacks. But when you play big, you get big attacks. So I get that
that's
on a
right.
deep level.
Yeah. Well, so here's where it gets good, though. Here's where it gets good. We can actually use that to our advantage. If fear's not a creative guy, but he is a busy guy and a productive overachiever who prioritizes, and he only spends his time with people who are doing work that matters, then now we can start to flip the script in our head. We can, I made a post the other day that was like, we can actually like rope a dope fear in. We can actually draw him in close to wear himself out, only to hit him with this knockout punch as our Rocky IV underdog soundtrack swells, which is, if fear is this boring, uncreative, predictable liar who only shows up when I'm doing work that matters, then we can actually use that to predict when we're on the right track. And starting today, here's your practical takeaway. When fear shows up, we can flip it for this script. Good. I must actually care about what I'm about to put into the world, right? I must actually care about whether it is original and innovative and built with integrity, whether it actually helps people, whether it moves the conversation forward, whether it actually makes good on the promised transformation. I must care about whether I've bled on the page for original work that I'm proud of, because honestly, some of the least real deal people I've ever met do not feel afraid at all, because why would they? They have no skin in the game. They have not bled on that page for original work they're proud of, so why would they be afraid? So fear just showed up. Good. You're about to do work that matters, and you must really care about whether it's actually going to help people.
Now, one more thing about this friend, fear and failure. Personally, I've got that little combo. My biggest fear is the fear of failure. I don't like to do stuff that I think I'm going to fail at. Let's be honest. So I actively have to restrain myself from saying no to stuff that I think there's a chance I could fail at, because it could be really good for me. Like, I have literally almost walked away from 5-figure partnerships because I'm like, I'm not a 5-figure partnership girly yet.
Right.
I haven't progressed to that point. Why do they even want to give me this offer? I mean, it's wild. It is absolutely wild, the opportunities that I've almost said no to just because I felt like I couldn't predict the future.
Yep.
So I know that you say that we're actually bad at failure, that we're failing at failure. So walk me through what that means, because I think that is an interesting perspective to have.
Well, this actually in a really fun way brings us back around full circle to Bayesian brain theory, which is more commonly referred to as predictive brain theory in the science. And what it essentially means in the simplest terms is that our brains are incredible prediction machines. Like they are pumping out Vegas worthy level odds over here of how good we will be at something before we even try. In the shortest form possible, our brains are prediction machines that are really good at determining whether or not we will fail at something before we even try. And if it thinks it won't work out, then it's really, really good at sort of like derailing us and distracting us and 90-degree turning us over to something that is a much more low cost, low risk, instant reward, instant gratification sort of, I get a little gold star today. I checked a thing on the box. I crossed something off my list. The cool part about this, though, like exactly what you were talking about, is we bow out of things we think we're going to fail at. That's actually science. That's actually our brains going, wait, I've run the models and I'm basing all of my models on previous input, previous data, previous track records of how it's always gone. I think we're going to fail. And so it moves out of the rational problem solving part of your brain and switches into now I perceive a threat. Whoa, red alert, failure is impending. Run away. And our brains really can't kind of distinguish between, is this a saber-toothed tiger that's chasing us, or we might just be disappointed. We might just be embarrassed. And so we switch out of that. It's called the amygdala hijack. And it says, that doesn't feel good. Go over there and cross something off your list you've actually already done and get yourself a little shot of dopamine, and let's do what's called immediate mood repair. I just want to feel better. I don't want to do hard things. And so the cool part about all of this is that the more we say yes to things that scare us, the more we say yes to things where we think, I am not there yet. Who am I to do this? I'm not a 5-figure deal person. Even if we actually start and should do this smaller and build up bigger and bigger and bigger, we're sort of building that muscle. We're building like a long track record, right? We're putting in the reps to show our brains new input to say, we are people who can do really hard things. And we are people who can do things that make us uncomfortable. And look at this, we are making progress. We're not failing every time. We're not disappointed every time. And the more that we show our brains we're becoming something new through those new inputs, little small daily shifts of keeping promises to ourselves, small but important commitments, the less our brain will amygdala hijack us. The more it will go, okay, cool, we've updated the models. There's like a 50-50 chance it could go either way. There's a 60-40 chance. Proceed, with my blessing. And so we're actually training our brains to stop making us sabotage and flinch at the ledge and, blink, drop the boulder, lose our grip, lose our way, and the boulder rolls all the way back down the mountain, because we're showing it that we are people who can be trusted, the grownups in the room who can be trusted, and it is safe for us to do hard things. So that's how we're failing at failing, is that we're not even showing ourselves we are trying to do hard things.
I will tell you something that has helped me a lot as well is stop taking life so seriously and start laughing a lot more.
Yeah.
So when I feel like I want to say no to something that's probably good for me, I'll just say, you know what? What's worst case scenario? You know what? If nothing else, I'll have a great story to tell after this.
That's right.
And sometimes it has gone sideways, but it's created so many fun stories for me to tell from stage. It makes me human. It takes away some of that fear. And so I think if you can kind of look at those scary opportunities too, as no matter what, you win. You win with the experience, you win with the knowledge, you win with the funny story, but you're going to win in some way, shape, or form. It's how much are you going to win that is left to be discovered. So that's how I do it. That's why I'm always laughing, always dancing, trying to like lighten the mood, because girl, I can get real intense and real serious real quick. So you guys are watching live, and I know your behavior. When y'all get quiet, it means that you are locked in, you are loving it, but your girl needs your engagement. So do not forget, if you are watching this live, whether you are on LinkedIn or on YouTube, just hit the little thumbs up. Let the algorithm know you like it so that more people can catch the replay. And I have one more question for Mary. Then I'm going to hop over to the comments to pop up any questions that are there. So as you were listening, I hope that you put any questions in the chat so you didn't forget. If you have something on the top of your mind right now while we have time with Mary, ask her those questions, because I think that if you need the encouragement, if you need the advice, now is the time while we've made space for it. So My last question that I have for you is, what advice do you have today for someone who needs encouragement to be brave and take imperfect action? I love the little slogan that says, it's okay to be a masterpiece and a work in progress. And
Mhm.
so I think there's something else in you. I know there is, or always is, that you can say just to encourage the people on a Monday morning after a very intense weekend that can help them to be encouraged, to be brave today, to be brave this week, and to show up imperfectly in their business.
Yeah, I think it really boils down for me to this idea of like, why are you afraid of taking imperfect action? And for most of us, I think the underlying, fear, the underlying belief is this idea that perfect can somehow keep us safe. That if we are just perfect enough, if we're perfect enough, if the thing we're building and creating is just perfect enough, then no one can ever find fault with it again. No one can ever criticize us again. No one can ever hurt us again. No one can ever disappoint us again. And so in chapter 10, perfectionism is hiding with better PR. I kind of have this like really fun section. A lot of the writing is very like lyrical and visual and metaphorical. And so I'm sort of comparing it to an ad campaign, and like, Hiding has just gone and hired himself the same people who rebranded cauliflower as pizza, like get those people on the phone. What if Hiding hired a really good marketing team and did a glow up and rebranded as perfectionism? And so it says, like, not since the Got Milk people has there been an ad campaign to make something so plain Jane vanilla seem so sexy and so sought after. Was there a catchy jingle? Was there a mascot? Like, how did they convince an entire room of focus group people that indefinitely delaying the dream was worth it so long as no one could ever hurt them again? And so that chapter actually goes really, really deep on we hold people at arm's length through the name of being perfect. We treat shiny like a stiff arm, a Heisman pose. We keep them far enough away, distracted by all of our many gold stars and achievements, that they can never get close enough to actually see our many flaws. We have this bespoke, stoic armor, this neon blinking camouflage that paradoxically makes us forever blend in by forever standing out. If all they can see is our latest accomplishment, they can't really see us. And then it says, then we're surprised to find out that it turns out being really good at not needing people, pushing people away, makes you find yourself not having any. And so full circle moment in that chapter, it's like talking about my mom leaving when I was 9, and how I started to use perfect as a weapon. I'll make her sad for not seeing how beautiful my life turned out, and how I always am chasing this future version of me I think will be the more perfect version to stand in the shoes of opportunities like 5-figure deals. And I say, let's just call it what it is. We think if we're perfect enough, we will finally be chosen, accepted, belong, and loved. Let's really call it what it is. We think if we're perfect enough, no one will ever leave us again. And, that chapter sort of ends by saying, like, we hoped that no one would ever abandon us, reject us again. But it turns out we abandon ourselves in 1,000 different ways, believing we have to be all these different versions of us before we can show up. And so I think that's what I would say to the person listening is like, what is it that you think perfect is actually giving you? And what is it actually costing you in the process? And again, coming back to that earlier statement, another year goes by, the clock goes on ticking, and the world is worse for your absence. So we never once asked you to show up perfectly. We never once asked you to have, these perfect records before you could belong. That voice in your head of fear is terrified of the day you finally realize that perfect records were never a prerequisite for purpose. We never asked you to be perfect. We just asked you to show up because we're waiting on this thing that only you can do.
We never asked you to be perfect. We just asked you to show up.
Yeah.
Child, I'm a journal on that today. Mm-mm.
I love
That's
it.
a word. That's a word. I mean, here's the thing. And I think that the internet, we really get in our own heads because we see these polished, perfect versions of the people that we look up to, and we think that is the entirety of who they are.
Yeah.
Even going to LA and meeting other Canva experts, it was so surreal how human we all were and how otherworldly we appear on the internet. It is wild. And we could be teaching the same thing, having the same heart, and still be nervous to meet each other because we've watched each other's content. We've watched them show up, and we just thought, oh man, like I'm not them. I can't dot, dot, dot. And so, I have been in environments too where I have collided with the human versions of the internet personas that I follow. And I've been shocked to realize like they're just like me.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I remember telling some of the girls on the trip was like, even with brand deals, right? I just said, look, I know sometimes it's so hard to stand your ground and to say, my rate is my rate, but you've got to remember that we all put our pants on one leg at a time. Like we are all just trying to make a living. We're just all trying to keep the lights on. You set your rates for a reason and you deserve to be fairly compensated for the work that you create online. So if someone is unwilling to see that value, if someone is not willing to meet you where you are, close that door, open it for somebody else, and move on as quickly as possible because there's so much opportunity out there. And I think sometimes we say yes to things that really aren't a good fit for us because we are afraid that if I don't say yes to this, then I will never. I mean, fear is really keeping so many people from, like you said, their purpose. And so I just want you to know that this is something that your favorite authors, educators, coaches, consultants, we are fighting this on the daily.
That's right.
And so I'm just so grateful that you juiced your brain and you put it all in there. You named all the fears so we didn't have to.
Very accurate, by the way.
Yes. Get it all out there. Get it all out there. And we are grateful for it. And one of the things that I really do enjoy about being connected with friends who are all experts in their own right in different fields is I get to learn from you through conversations like this, through reading your books. And it really does make me realize that I don't have to be an expert in everything. I can create platforms to elevate other people and share that information in a compelling and practical way so that people can move forward with their lives, that they don't have to stay here. I'm from rural Dinwiddie County, so small we refer to it as a county, not a city, not a town. That's where I'm from, people, and so even now what's so hysterical is like, I'm beyond, where I grew up in the sense that there's more opportunity. And even still, I live in the mountains. I'm not living in LA. I'm not living in New York. I'm not living in Atlanta. Like I love being able to be out in nature in a moment's notice. And so I think it's just so important that you don't compare yourselves to where we are now as if where you are is not comparable. We all had to start somewhere. And so I want to give people an opportunity to just hear a bit more about how they can actually go get the book. This was like not even like tip of the iceberg. I wanted to kind of glaze over some high points. But ultimately, the main reason why I wanted you here was because I wanted to celebrate what you've done and share your story and share your work with my community because I know that you have the capacity to help a lot of people. And so if y'all just watched this live stream and went on with your lives, that would not bring me as much joy as if you got the book in your hands. Not to mention the fact that everybody who joins the membership this month, even if you use my birthday discount, y'all, even if you're like, I'm a coupon girly, you're going to get a copy of this. Okay. So just trust and believe. I will be sending you a copy of the book if you become a member. So if you've been on the fence, even more motivation to join. But what I want to do, you have a gorgeous landing page that shares more about the book, and we've got a quick link to help them to get there. So let's talk about what they're going to see when they go to namethefear.com.
Yeah. First of all, happy birthday yesterday.
Thank you, girl. Thank you, girl.
Oh
it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And then the other thing I just want to say before I forget it, and then I will talk about the site, is the thing that you were just describing about oh gosh, like stand your ground on your price. Oh gosh, like what if I lose this deal and there won't be another one? We actually talk about that. I talk about that in the book. I call that the Oliver Twist problem, which is sort of like going through life with like your little bowl asking for scraps, please, can I have some more? And not feeling like there's just a feast that's waiting for you, and just believing that if you, whether it's a part, like a romantic partner or a business partner, or, whatever the offer may be, the first, maybe like book agent who reaches out to you, whatever, it's this belief that will be all that there is for you. And if you don't scoop up the scraps right away, you're going to starve. And so that's like
Mm.
just another version of one of the fears that we do talk about in the book. And my whole goal with this book was talking about fear and teaching fear with these very memorable, visual, visceral metaphors, because the easier you can, we know people learn best by story and metaphor, the easier you can recall, oh, that's just that name of fear, the easier you can kind of cut it off mid-sentence and suck all the power out of the room that fear has. So like, for example, the Edward Scissorhands example, when I'm talking about second guessing is a missing handbook, that we feel like we're missing these, pertinent parts, like Edward Scissorhands dropped down right in the middle of a pastel suburban hell. We are the ones who die death by 1,000 cuts when we break the rules because we didn't know the rules. So that's just kind of like just a setup of like what you're looking at here. And if you want to get a better feel for my writing style, which is very lyrical and metaphorical. You can see we just scrolled past that a second ago. We have the whole first chapter up there for free. It's just a download. You can go enter your name and email, and we will get you the whole first chapter for free. That's really talking about and setting up the problem of why does it feel like we keep starting over. So you can check that out there. And then we have, just what all the chapters are on there. We have all the people who endorsed it. We have a foreword from Sharon McMahon for anybody who follows her. And so it just kind of lays it all out there for you.
I love that. I did see some questions in the comments, so I want to give some time to that, and then we'll land the plane. But I am just so glad we made time to do this because this has
Me
been
too.
so much fun. So let me just say that before I put you to work with these questions. A very simple question Adrian had is this book on Audible as well?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, Adrian, because I forgot to say this. If you go ahead and order the book, if you go ahead and pre-order, as this is airing live and as it'll be on the replay here at 11, we're 2 weeks from the book coming out. If you go ahead and pre-order one of the bonuses, you'll get the first 3 chapters right away, but one of the other bonuses is the entire audiobook as a bonus. So you're getting 2 books for the price of one. You can have one to underline and highlight and one where I read it and I will whisper into your ears for 74,000 words. I do all the voices and all the accents.
I absolutely love you in audiobook mode too. So it's totally worth it, guys. It's the best. I think my favorite was the slow growth audiobook. That was so good. Adrian had another question here. How does one expand their capacity and consider their full potential beyond their comfort zone? Small steps, big leaps, mindset, etc.
Yeah, so that really kind of is that idea. That cheesy post I was talking about, it said you have to expand your capacity, expand it until it feels like an infinity pool. And it's like, of course, it had to be an infinity pool on an account like that. But that's really what's happening. The more that we're doing those small commitments, small but important commitments, and actually keeping them, it's as if we're on the inside of the shot glass and we're just stretching it out. Like if you've ever seen somebody blow glass, right, when it's like still pliable and it actually can stretch, like a small little dollop of whatever glass is made of can actually stretch to an entire huge pitcher of capacity that can then be poured out for others, right? We're not just asking to be able to contain it all ourselves. We're asking to contain more because then we are able to be that vessel that can be poured out for others. And that kind of gets into chapter 14, which is a fear of success and this leap we have to make over to true significance when it stops being about us. So I would say that's 2 things, right? So that's small but important commitments that stretch our capacity for what we can hold. It's shifting from, is it all about me, to who does it serve? What might go wrong, to who might it help? And then number 3 is just this sort of idea of excellence is the precursor to unshakable confidence. Excellence is an entirely different beast than perfectionism. Perfectionism is based in fear and says, how might I get hurt? Excellence is based in love and says, who might it serve? And it's this belief that I was talking about earlier of like, did you show up and make good on the promised transformation? Is it original? Is it built with integrity? Do you believe in your bones it will actually help people? And when we do that, then we can say to ourselves, fear showed up. It's just proof that I care. So excellence, stretching that capacity by keeping promises to ourselves, making it about other people.
I love what Camille said. She said that as she's gotten older, she's become more cautious about things and she tends to play small in some areas. So have you noticed that in yourself, that as you've gotten older, the fears have actually increased when it comes to putting yourself out there?
I think there's definitely like the adulting responsibilities. When Justin and I first started our photography business in 2005, 2003 for him really, but 2005 full time. We did not have a mortgage. We had pretty small living expenses. We weren't dealing with, hyperinflation or whatever. We didn't have kids to support. So I think that there's, for us personally, we still don't have kids to support, but we have dogs that really like to be fed. And so I think there is a certain element of you start to get more responsibilities on the plate. And I also think that we've just also been trained by the narrative of like, grow up, kid. It's time to grow up. It's time to, act like an adult. It's time to be serious. And I would say for me, I went through a phase of that. And then I've almost come full circle to feeling like that brand new, fresh faced entrepreneur version of myself again. Because I have like such a vision for where I'm headed. I had such a vision for where our photography business was headed. And then you get comfortable, like as you're climbing the steps I talked about earlier from that fear of success chapter, it talks about the hierarchy entrepreneurs go through from start to survival, barely getting by, to some stability. Okay, things are sort of showing up every month, to some security. I have a little more than enough. To people are calling you a success, all the way up to significance. And so as you're moving up into stability and security, we can start to become addicted to those, as if our hope and our purpose and what will protect us is only in outward stability, outward comforts. But I just don't think we were put here. I have this working theory that people in general burn out because they work too hard and don't rest enough and are stressed out. But creatives burn out because they start doing the same things over and over and over again. And so I feel like I've come full circle of like, I have a new vision for where I'm headed. And it feels like every day I'm creating something new, and I'm sort of falling in love with not having in chapter 3, I say like this good life, good enough can become the enemy of great, which is from a Jim Collins book, Good to Great. And so our comfortable lives can actually become the enemy of our lives of purpose.
I want you guys to know kind of the thought process too behind the scenes of me even doing the book discussions, that mixing up the format on my YouTube channel where I'm not just talking to the screen and recording myself talking to myself helps me to have the longevity that it takes to do YouTube for a living. So sometimes, you say to yourself like, oh, well, people came to me because I'm the tutorial girl, so that's all I'm going to be. But you'd be surprised when you mix it up how many people will come along for the ride. And so if you look on my YouTube channel, there are times where nobody has asked me for a vlog, and you get in the vlog, because if that little moment of doing something slightly different keeps me going and gives me something exciting to talk about, then that's totally worth it in the long run, because that keeps me from burning out. And I also, you guys know I'm known for that 20-hour work week. And I really did work hard to get that formula down to a science, because I know when I hit that threshold of I'm just phoning it in. I'm just showing up because I have to. And I genuinely believe that people are paying for the best version of myself. And so figuring out what that looked like, figuring out what my capacity was, and saying, okay, I got 20 marbles. That's all I got. No more, no less. Like, let's figure out how I'm going to divvy it up this week, and feeling confident in that if I protect that boundary, everything else will benefit as a result. It makes it so much easier to show up. And so I'm going to be doing these book talks, at least for the next 2 months, once a month, because I love having these conversations, and it gives me an opportunity to not have to maintain the spotlight for a whole hour. Okay. This has fueled me, just being able to have this conversation with Mary and allow you guys to eavesdrop on it. So it's been a blessing to me. I really loved this comment, and I want to make sure we address this. What would you say to somebody who just straight up has not started because of fear? Some of us are doing it and we're fighting fear in the process of doing it. But if fear is so crippling that you haven't even hit start, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think I would try to get into the core of which one is really driving you, right? So the two that are kind of coming up for me, although that's really why there are 14 chapters. There are a bunch of different ways that fear can keep us stuck. I say I move people from stuck to start, not stuck to finish, right? The whole goal is to take the first step. That's really where we're beginning. And so the things that are coming up for me is this I am second guessing myself because I feel like I was never given the handbook for life when I was little growing up. And I feel like other people just are always more informed. They've been better equipped. They just know how to do life better. That's chapter 4. Second guessing is a missing handbook. Or does it feel more like chapter 7? Overthinking is an orange safety cone. And I say in that chapter, if second guessing is a missing handbook, overthinking is a missing blueprint, right? We think that it's not even so much that we don't feel like we had a good childhood or we weren't equipped growing up. It's that we don't know how to do this thing in particular. I don't know what goes into writing a book. I don't know what goes into starting a YouTube channel. And so I think in either case, it's going to be the next phase for you is learning. It's research. It's expanding the information that you have. It's just a matter of, are you expanding information more on like how to be a grown-up in the world? You feel like you're missing the handbook, or is it more, I'm good on that, I just need to know how to do this thing in particular, in which case you're looking for something like a guide. And I always say in the book and in real life, at the right time, a guide will be provided. So if a guide has just shown up, maybe it's time. So that's kind of what's jumping up for me is like, are you stuck because you don't trust yourself? That's more chapters, 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Or is it more that you just don't know how to do the thing? And that's more like 7 and 8 and 9 and 10.
I just love that you just know your book like that. I'm like, girl, how do you keep all that up in your noggin? Look, trust and believe, that is not my story. That is not my gifting. I've got gifts. That ain't one of them. I cannot quote my table of contents because I'm still actively writing it as we speak. I do want to land the plane with this question because I thought this was really cool too. And just so you know, my friend, Camille has pre-ordered. Adrian says she's definitely buying the book. Lolita says she just pre-ordered her copy. So we love to see action being taken. Good job, my friends. Love you for doing that. And I hope that that encourages you, Mary. But I do want to do this last question. How does risk relate to this? How should risk be viewed, defined, or assessed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's like, this is the grown up question to ask, right? This kind of goes back to what we were talking about of like, do we have a mortgage that, bills have to be paid? I have never once said to anybody I was coaching, like, just forget it, throw the budget out the window, you'll figure it out. We are always trying to help people do this in a way that's just an actual sustainable way of growing businesses. A really great book I would actually recommend that goes deep dive on this is a book called Quitter by Jon Acuff. And whether you're thinking about leaving a job where you're working for somebody else or you're thinking about leaving the business you're doing now to go do something new, it just really walks through like how to walk away from things with integrity, to sort of close the door on them in a way that you can always leave close the door in a way that you can leave the door open to come back. Not in a go back to that job sort of way, but you'd never know 10 years from now how your paths may cross again, and how to do it in a way where you are setting yourselves up for, 3-month or 6-month emergency funds, and you're not just putting your whole family at risk to chase something. So I'm actually a big believer in that. I don't want anything that I'm saying to be like, fear's stupid, just do it anyway. Like, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it like adults, And so I'm actually even going to just kind of like dodge that answer over to a book that really does do a good job of answering that, called Quitter by Jon Acuff. And for all of y'all who did say that you pre-ordered or you're going to pre-order, if you email me at mary@marymarantz.com, I'll send you the link to make sure you get logged in for those pre-order bonuses. That section was supposed to go live this morning and it's not up yet. So mary@marymarantz.com, we'll make sure you get tagged to get the audiobook when it comes out.
You're so sweet. Y'all, I packed this hour, so I hope you enjoyed it. I can't wait to watch the replay. Like, I tell people this is like my lazy podcast.
Yeah.
So it's giving you podcasts, but I ain't got time to promote nothing. So I hope you loved it. Y'all watch the replay while you're walking, while you're washing your dishes. If you just need that reminder to be afraid and do it anyway. If that's what you need, now this is a resource on the channel. Of course, I'm going to remind you that you can become a member this month. If you do it today, you can do it for $35. Come tomorrow, that link is not going to work for you. It's not going to work. I'm just letting you know. So if you want to get in, Use it. The code is birthday35 for you to get in for $35. You'll get a copy of Mary's book. So that's going to be an awesome addition to your bookshelf. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as I did. Mary, if you can hold on for just a minute once I play the stinger so that we can chat. But for all of y'all on the other side, I want you to know that I am super grateful for you. We are getting close to our next YouTube milestone, which is super exciting. So again, make sure that you like it if you like it and subscribe if you want more. But until next time, ta-ta for now.